Got to give the people, get a people what they want. All right, here, Mr. Bass, we're talking about 2.4, operations with complex numbers. So let's talk about how we add and subtract complex numbers. So a couple things to remember. This is basically similar to combining like terms. You're going to combine your real numbers, and then you're going to combine your complex numbers. And then there's one other thing to remember. When you are subtracting, don't forget to distribute the subtraction sign, or distribute really the -1 that is outside the parentheses. So let's take some time to actually do this. So go ahead and write down example 1. We have 3 minus I plus 2 plus 3I. All right? So it says combine like terms. So what I'm going to do is I can get rid of my parentheses. So I have 3, I have minus, and if I want to think of that as 1I, I have plus, I have a 2, and I have plus 3I. Well, think about it. What are your like terms? 3 and 2, those are your real numbers. Those are like terms. So 3 plus 2 is 5. -1I, positive 3I. 3 minus 1I is 2I. 5 plus 2I. Easy peasy pumpkin squeezy. That's what my daughter says. Or she used to, at least. All right, so let's do number 2. Example number 2 says 3 minus -2 plus 3I plus, in parentheses, -5 plus I. This is where that second rule comes in. It says don't forget when you're subtracting. See, I have subtraction right here. Don't forget to distribute the subtraction sign. Well, this really has an invisible -1 here. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute this. So what this ultimately becomes is 3 plus -1 times -2 is 2, and -1 times positive 3 is minus 3I. And then I also have plus, I have a -5, and I have a 1I. Okay? I just distributed that -1 throughout. And now I'm going to put together my like terms. Regular number, regular number, regular number. Let's see, 3 plus 2 is 5, and 5 minus 5 is 0. Then I have -3I and 1I is -0 minus 2I. So my answer is really just -2I. Easy. All right? So now let's talk about multiplying complex numbers. So for multiplying complex numbers, I need you to remember that I times I is I squared. And I squared is always equal to -1. And if you're trying to remember why, well, I is the square root of -1. I is the square root of -1. And the square root of -1 times the square root of -1 is -1. And if you're trying to remember why, well, think about this. What if I took 4 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 4? Well, I know that the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 4 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So you can see that if I take the same square root and multiply it by itself, the answer is the number that was inside of the square root to begin with. Okay? So we've talked about that stuff before, but I just want to make sure you remember it. So let's get busy here. What's the other thing you have to do? You're going to have to use an area model, aka the box method, to multiply complex numbers. Let's get it done. Example 1 says 5 times -2 plus 3I. So let's use the area model. 5 times -2 plus 3I. That's -10. And that is 15I. 3 times 5 is 15I. So this literally becomes -10 plus 15I. Easy as can be. let's do the second one. Actually, why don't you pause it right here and you try the second one without me. See if you do it right. Cool. You paused, you did it. Here's what you hopefully tried. You're like, okay, I know how to do this. We've been doing this, Bass. It's nothing. It's nothing. 2, we have minus 1i. That's this. We have 4 plus 3i. Easy work. Well, 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 3 is, 2 times 3 is 6i. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 with an I. And negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. And I times I is I squared. So let's see. I have 8. I have some like terms. I have 6i minus 4i. So I have plus 2i. And then I have minus 3i squared. Hopefully you're looking pretty good on that one so far. But now you're like, oh, I could do some more. Here's the key. We know what I squared equals. What does I squared equal? Negative 1. So I have 8 plus 2i minus 3 times I squared, which is just negative 1. So I'm going to finish my simplification. I have 8 plus 2i, negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. All right, so then pushing it right from there, I just have, boom, boom, like terms. 8 plus 3 is 11 plus 2i. There is my final answer. Last problem. Why don't you do this one on your own? It says 3 plus 2i squared. Why don't you try it? All right, you paused it, you tried it. Hopefully you used the area model. This is what you did. You said, I got this, Bass, it's nothing. 3, ooh, that is ugly. 3 plus 2i times 3 plus 2i, right? Because that's 3 plus 2i times 3 plus 2i. We know that. 9. This is 3 times 2 is 6i. 3 times 2 is 6i. 2 times 2 is 4. I times I is I squared. Which equals 9 plus 6i and 6i is 12i. And that was supposed to say I squared. Plus 4i squared. Again, that I squared has to jump out to me. Okay, 9 plus 12i plus 4 times negative 1, because I squared is negative 1. 9 plus 12i. And 4 times negative 1 is minus 4. Like terms, 9 minus 4 is 5 plus 12i. That is it. That is all you need for tonight. Please make sure, ask any questions when we come through tomorrow, but I think you guys should do very well with this piece. All right, Bass, I'm out.